Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And today I just wanted to get into a little bit of talking points in regards to the idea of Lego mock builders and them working with third-party companies that will use third-party bricks, but being able to, be produced in a way where they are official and being able to be on the market. In this case, we are just taking a look at this is the from Barware Stinger Mantis. And I already did a review on this, so I'm gonna put that in the link in the description so you guys can check out that review. But this is not so much directly about the ship itself, so I'm not really going to go into the ship or any kind of details of the ship. Like I said, look at that review if you want to go into details of the ship. This is more so just talking about that connection between mock makers or mock designers and third-party companies like Barware or any other company that might end up taking up this project. I'm not going to speak in vain for anyone else, any companies that may or may not end up doing it, but you've got a few other companies out there that could end up doing it. I believe like Bricks is one, and I think there are a few other different companies out there that you could find on Amazon and this and that, whatever the case is. Barware seems to have its own website and seems to it has its own website and it has its own stuff kind of built in, so you don't have to go to an outside place to shop for them. And what's interesting is this ship here can actually be found on eBay, but I wouldn't be surprised if what they're doing is getting it from Barware and then just selling it after the fact, because they're selling it for way more expensive than Barware is selling it. But my point is that I think that this is the first time I've ever seen that before. And I think that merge or marriage between mock builder and a third party, the mock builder who designed this was called Two Bricks, and he actually is famous on YouTube in terms of his mocks. Like a lot of people watch his channel because he does a lot of really good work. And I think that, it's the first time I've ever seen this, but I think that it's definitely a thing that changes the game, and it definitely makes things a little scary for Lego. It makes it scary for Lego because, anybody can make a ship and a design however they want. No one has to, you might get to a point where, because of Disney, and this is the thing about it, Lego can't make any complaints because the person who would make the complaint is Disney. And Disney, at least right now, wouldn't really care because, a mock builder, working with a third-party company like Barware is still too small to be on their radar of, yeah, we're losing money, this and that. It's way too small. But say if things did get bigger, them taking the likeness of something and building it in bricks, I don't think it's something that could be copywritten. Maybe the name, they wouldn't be able to officially call it Stinger Mantis. And that would be, or any other ship that has an official name, and that might end up becoming a thing. And I could see that, I can understand that. But outside of that, essentially, you have these companies that are able to, for a price that Lego would never be able to match, they are able to, make these builds. And it doesn't have to be limited to builds that Lego is not making. You could even make builds that Lego is making and then just essentially do it better. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these mock designers are able to do things sometimes better. And when it comes to price, well, Lego is trying to, maybe not, they charge a lot for what they do, but then that also limits them, because sometimes when they go, well, we don't want to make a set maybe more than $150, we're not going to put certain details in it or a certain amount of pieces because we don't want it to go above that threshold, rather than just going above the threshold and charging people less. But when you have other companies that use third-party bricks, and now that's a major thing too, a lot of these third-party bricks, there's the brick company, there's the companies like Barware who I don't think they design their own bricks, I'm not too sure, but they're a third-party distributor. But then when you think of the third-party brick designers, the ones who actually make the bricks, and I don't know what the name of these bricks are, but I've actually on the channel before have reviewed other types of bricks that I purchased on Amazon. Some of them were like okay, some of them were not as good as others, but obviously a company like Barware is going to utilize whatever third-party company makes probably some of the better bricks, and definitely in this build I had no problem with these bricks. My point that I was going to get at is it's cheaper for them. It's so much cheaper, but the quality is still good. It's definitely good enough you won't notice the difference, yet it's so much cheaper. So they're able to do things so much cheaper. And so this whole mixing pot of everything going on here right now between the more affordable prices, accessible because it's a company, it's a third party company that can do whatever they want and be whatever. They aren't restricted or limited to some of the things that Lego might be limited to, along with they don't have to necessarily be great at designing because they're working with the mock designers who are part of the community who make their own stuff. And a lot of them will go and put things on, if I'm not mistaken, it's rebrickable. And I don't know if I know Lego has bought out Bricklink. I don't know if they own any aspect of Rebrickable, but Rebrickable is, obviously a great site for putting up. Mock makers can put up their own, designs and instructions on there, but it takes it to a whole nother level because usually the only time I feel someone would readily be able to go to Bricklink and just say, I want to buy these instructions because I want to build something real quick, is if it's an alternate build of a set that Lego makes and they go, cool, I can buy the pieces in one shot by buying the Lego set, and then now it's an alternate build. But at that point, you're hoping that it uses the majority of the bricks rather than leaving it where a lot of those bricks are not being used. But in this case, when you take a mock builder and he partners up with a brand like Barware, what you get is you don't have to buy another set and change it into that. Now you have the limitations of what squeezes from that original Lego set to fit into this alternate build. You are now able to design it the exact way that the mock designer had intended, along with, so you can start from bare bones scratch. In addition, like I said before, it's cheaper getting the parts. Between that and the imagination being the limit, where I think we're gonna end up seeing a change in which there's so many things that starts taking place. So I'm glad, this is the first time I've seen this. Put down in the comments below if you've guys seen this with, any other designers, any kind of thing like that, or whatever the case is. But honestly, that engine over there definitely makes it kind of heavy. You got to have it on the stand, which I'm going to put it down soon. But if you don't have a place to store it, this thing is very tall. But anyway, so like I said, this whole coming together of, mock designers, third party companies is going to open up the doors for things like, say, and this is not limited to Star Wars, but obviously since they started with Star Wars, we'd probably end up getting a lot more Star Wars. I did see some other ships on their thing as well. Something called a Trailblazer, I think it's called. I'm not too sure. I'm not too familiar with the ship, but apparently it's the ship to Outlaws, which I think is a newer game beyond Jedi Fallen Order. But I don't really know much on it. But my point is, so they have other of their own designs up there too for Barware. But as far as working with mock designers, I don't know if a mock designer designed that Trailblazer one, but the point is that them doing with Star Wars stuff, you could soon end up seeing things like Jedi Temple. You could probably end up seeing just location mocks, like maybe Coruscant, a couple of buildings in Coruscant, maybe 4 buildings in a little layout that gives you the sense of Coruscant, or maybe a Tatooine layout with a couple of little buildings and, maybe 4 buildings or 5 buildings, and just this little scenery sets that you could kind of put together. Who knows? The sky's the limit. The point is, working with mock builders, they're doing the thinking, and they get to take their genius and bring it over to a company that puts it into fruition, takes their dreams or their thoughts and puts it right into the real world for us to purchase and enjoy. So like I said before, I really think that is amazing, and it opens up a whole new doorway when it comes to all this stuff. And I'm really excited to see where that's going to take things, because I really do think that it's going to really put a fire under Lego's bottom in terms of them realizing, okay, we keep upping our prices and people are going to start fading away. And I wouldn't be surprised if they may try to crack down on the idea that if this becomes really big and you have a lot of, say you have all the greatest mock builders start going over to Barware and just start utilizing them, and Barware starts having this huge collection of Star Wars stuff, and maybe go into other later brands, but for right now we're just stick with Star Wars and say they start making the Star Wars stuff. I could really easily see Lego being like, you know what, reaching out to Disney and saying, we want you to put a stop to anyone being able to make Lego designs. I'm making Star Wars designs or any other kind of whatever designs. And then, of course, the answer to that, which we'll probably get around it very easily, is just simply, we aren't going to call it that. We aren't going to call it the Stinger Mantis. Maybe we'll call it, the buzzing mantis or something like, some made up name that lets people know, yes, it's the same thing, but it's not really the same thing. And that would really be, I could see that happening. But honestly, I look forward to seeing how everything kind of goes down, because I really do think that the game is going to be changed, and there's going to be so much awesome mocks that are being created to the point where like people are not going to know what to do with themselves. It's going to be amazing, and their collections are going to grow because the sky is the limit. Anyway, and also too, before I end this video, I want to also add that it will also give way to a lot of young designers and a new way for them to make money. Because I can imagine somebody who is in this creative space and they get so good at it that maybe even 10 years old, 12 years old, they're really good, and their parents are go, cool, we're gonna put your designs to these companies that allow you guys to be sponsored. And then before you know it, they just have this flourishing business of just constantly making mocks, and then getting percentages of it even from a young age, to where you got kids who get to the point where they're like, maybe young age, 12 years, 15 years old, and that becomes their business. By the time now they're old, like that's what they do, and they work for these companies directly or whatever the case is. But I just imagine the sky's the limit with that. Anyway, you guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.